Hey, how's it going, guys? This is NatePick, and welcome to my tech world. Today, I want to look at this 2016 MacBook Pro. This was actually given to me, I think it was last year when it was actually given to me, and I have some thoughts about it. So this is the year that they started the butterfly keys, and honestly, I've been a little bit shocked by it. And the reason I've been shocked by it is because the fact of the matter is, this one still works, and it works quite well. So as someone that has been starting to use macOS, the journey kind of started last year, I do have some thoughts about macOS that I kind of disagree a little bit with the thoughts that Matt has about it. But in the same sense, I know exactly why he says it the way he does. When it comes to actual just functionality, there are some weird things on macOS, like, for example, having to learn that the command key is basically the super key and the control key at the same time was a little weird to get used to. And with that being said, it's not bad. It's just it's hard to get used to it because of the way that I normally operate with the system. Like, I have my Pop! OS machine here that I'm currently using to edit this video, but at the same time, I tend to also use my MacBook M2 Air, and that one, once again, having to get used to the command key and everything, it's a little weird. And when you have big man hands like me, it makes it a little difficult because some of the controls, like the command is so close, like Command C and Command V, whereas normally on a keyboard it's Control C, Control V, and that is a weird. It's kind of a weird setup for me. I really can only imagine, since Matt likes to use a split keyboard, how that would be very confusing with the split keyboard. And yeah, it would probably cause me trouble too if I can fix the dactyl, which he did send me. Maybe that's a later video. But today I want to talk about the 2016 MacBook Pro. This is the top of the line version, and I will include some screenshots, and I'll try to do some B-roll so that you can kind of see what I'm talking about. But it does have the top spec dual core i7. Yes, it was the Intel dual core nonsense that they put in an i7. Completely ridiculous. But it does have 16 gigabytes of RAM and a 1 terabyte SSD. So whenever I have been using this, I did have Sequoia on here for a while when I first got it, but it just ran so slow. And I think it was because a lot of the open core legacy patcher that I use for this just wasn't ready for Sequoia, to be honest. So I kind of wiped it completely, started over, and I put back on Monterey, which is what this actually came with. That was the final macOS that supported. And with Monterey, I did get a lot of apps working, which was good, but I did notice that some of the things were starting to become out of support, and they wanted a newer version. So I went back to Open Core Legacy Patcher and I installed Sonoma, which happens to work really well. And there's a key to that. You have to actually turn off quite a few features. So the first thing I did, of course, is I disabled Siri because I absolutely have zero use for Siri whatsoever. Even with the new update that's coming out, I believe it's Golden Gate or something like that, with the new Siri and AI, I still will turn it off because I have no use for it. And all Siri will do is just constantly peg your CPU, and with it being a dual core CPU, I don't need that. So with that being said, I completely turned that off. Also, the next thing that I turned off is I turned off basically Spotlight. So you can still technically use it, but I reduced the Spotlight indexing quite a bit. And there is a bash script that you can use to kind of turn that off. With that being said, you can still use Spotlight, but it just kind of cuts down the processes just a little bit to only really work when you need it to work and not constantly be running. The next thing is I turn off a lot of widgets. I don't use widgets. I don't care for widgets. And I know some people that use Linux. They also love widgets. KDE is a big one that can use tons of widgets. I don't have a use case for them. So for me, I just disable it altogether, and that actually cuts down a lot of processes. The next thing that I turned off is I turned off quite a few of the animations. I don't really care for the animations. I just want my window to pop up and go back down. I don't really care for this like weird thing that it does like this. I don't care for it. So I turned that off. I reduced some of the transparency mode because that can tax the CPU, especially being a dual core. Though transparency is still there, it's just a little bit reduced. It's just not as transparent as you've seen some of the screenshots for, like, especially like the liquid glass stuff. That stuff is insane, which is the reason why this will probably never ever run Tahoe ever. And then another thing that I have is I have an application that says last window quits. And so if you don't know anything about macOS, one of the things that it does is when you click to exit a program, it actually keeps it in RAM. It keeps it as cache. So that way, when you open an application, it will automatically pop back up and you're like, oh, wow, look how fast it loaded. I don't like that because all you're doing is starting to build all this little cache of all these applications. If you're like me, I'll open several applications in a day. And yeah, I don't need that to stay in RAM. I don't need it to stay in cache. So last window quits actually forces it to completely quit the program. It actually, so instead of having to go up to the little Apple logo and then hit quit on the application, all you got to do is hit the X. It will quit the application automatically for you. And I will say there is a little bit of a weird bug if you're on Sequoia that happens because I have a 15-inch MacBook Pro, which I'll probably talk about later on in a different video. But with Sonoma, this doesn't happen. It just works out of the box. It works great. Every time I close the application, boom, it will automatically close the actual application. And of course, you can do some maintenance things as far as like clearing up your login items. So if you have a lot of applications that's trying to load as soon as you log in, do you really need all those? Kind of go through and clear some of those up because that can tax your CPU, especially as soon as you start an application. And on top of that, you know, you are running Open Core Legacy Patcher. If you have this kind of hardware and you got a newer macOS version, yeah, that can kind of slow things down until it finally loads. With that being said, as you can see, I have the MacBook fully running, and this is running Sonoma. I have the background animations off, so I don't run a dynamic wallpaper. I just use my wallpaper, which, of course, it has an old computer type thing with the floppy drive. Y'all know how I roll. This has two features that one I can't stand and one I actually really like. So the first thing that I actually really like is the actual touch bar. Like, I wish they would have reconfigured the new Macs to give us the function row. I can understand that, but put the touch bar above it to where you can actually still use it in applications. For example, I don't know if you know this, but if you use DaVinci Resolve, you can actually use the touch bar to scroll with your finger along the timeline. So instead of having to use a mouse all the time, you literally can just touch it with your finger and scroll the footage. That feature I wish was in the newer Macs. It's actually very helpful. Now, do I agree that it should have replaced the function keys? No. That's the one downside to this is there's no proper function keys. With that being said, I still believe they could have brought down the function keys just a little bit and had a full bar, and that to me would have been more useful than actually trying to, you know, rewrite the whole thing, which now they're back to just the function bar, and I really like the touch bar. Now, I think part of the reason why people don't like the touch bar is because the next thing that I actually don't like, that's the butterfly keyboard. It just feels so weird to type on. And according to what most people say, it's only a matter of time until the keyboard fails. Thankfully, thank God, this one has not failed me. And it still types. It still uses all of its keys just right. And it works. But there's just some things that it just don't feel good. I don't know how to explain it to you. I mean, you literally barely press down and you feel a click and then it makes a key register. It just doesn't feel good. There's not enough travel to me. And I wish that this had the older style keyboard, because that would have been more acceptable to me. But I also understood why they did it this way, because they wanted to get it as thin as possible and not, cause any issues with the screen or whatever. Which also, this 2016 does have a screen problem. Is slowly starting to delaminate. So over time, I probably will have to completely replace the screen. For now, it works. I can see everything. I'm not touching it because I don't know if you know this, even for Intel Macs, screens are expensive to replace on these things, which means I'm not going to touch it because, yeah, it would cost way too much to replace the screen. And I'm not going to do it. That's too much money for going into this laptop. Also, this laptop, and I've seen several other Macs, I actually experienced several other Macs in the same era that have the same problem, is that the speakers, this was the top of the line 13-inch MacBook Pro, and these speakers have a problem where they have static buildup and they actually discharge through the speakers, and you think that your machine is like, maybe the hinges are bad. No, it's the actual speaker that is popping. Yeah, that kind of took me several months to actually get used to. I'm used to it now, so when it does it, I'm just like, whatever, and move on, because it only does it like a couple times and then it'll quit. But every time that you start the computer and open the lid to basically log back in, it'll probably do it. And it's just static discharge. That's all it is. There's something within the actual hardware that causes it. Can't really fix it. But as long as my speakers still work, I'm okay. Which leads me to audio quality. Obviously, audio quality, it is not going to be as good as a modern Mac. It's just not. It is not as good as my MacBook M2 Air. That sounds way better, has better bass, all that. And if you ever looked at a Pro version of the MacBook, yeah, it has way better speakers. A lot more detail in the bass. It sounds better. With that being said, as far as a 2016 laptop, there's no other laptop that's even close. They're not close at all. This sounds so much better. I have a Lenovo T14 Gen 3 that has it's a 13 Gen Intel i5, and the speakers on it are so tinny. Like, you could tell they literally said, this is a business laptop. That's it. There's no thought into audio whatsoever. With this laptop, it sounds almost night and day compared to that laptop. And the last thing, which I really can't show you because I'm not at the church, so I don't have access to the equipment that I've been testing it on. But with that being said, the last thing is the 4 Thunderbolt ports. That has been absolutely great to use because I can plug in multiple different instruments and still use it as a MIDI. And like, my DAW is Reaper. That's what I use. It's a digital audio workstation. I use Reaper all the time. And a lot of times what I'm connected to is several electric drums. And that means I have more than one module that I'm working with. And I could hook those into the Thunderbolt ports. And if I wanted to, I could do it under one, or I can do it as I do is in two, because I have a connector that actually plugs into 2 of them on the side. And I can use that as the connection point for the drum modules for MIDI USB. Also, I can plug in the PreSonus audio interface that we have setting at the church. So that allows me to put all the drum sounds through that interface as well. And then that can get sent out to the main PreSonus mixer. So that actually makes it easier for me to be able to use my VST, like Steven Slate drums is my main one, because I'm kind of heavily invested into their products. And the reason why I'm heavily invested is because I like pearls. I've always liked pearls. That's pretty much all I've played for most of my life. I have tried other drum sets. I still like pearls. And I really wish I had a Pearl Mimic Pro. Still costs way too much. Irregardless, they use Steven Slate drums, and it's a really nice module that just pretty much works with any kind of electronic drum set that you have. So with that being said, I want to be able to kind of recreate that, and using this laptop to basically turn my modules into a Pearl Mimic Pro with Steven Slate drums is absolutely great. And I get all kinds of sounds that I could change. One of the biggest things is that whenever you're playing, especially in church, some of the songs require different sound of the drum set. And that's something I can literally just hit one button. It will change everything on my presets. It will change all the pads back to whatever preset that I have and load it. Done. Could go and play in a song. If I go back into, say, we're playing a faster song and I need a little bit more snappier snare, easy. Hit a preset, it'll reload it. There we go. Now I can play. So the main reason why I'm saying that don't give up on these old Intel Macs is because they still have a lot of use case. Once again, you can use OpenCore Legacy Patcher, and I would say go up to Sonoma, because Sonoma is very well optimized for this Mac. Is very well optimized for like 2017, 2018. Of course, 2019 technically still supports Sequoia natively, so ain't got to worry about it too much on that end. I wouldn't go up to Tahoe, because I have noticed that at Tahoe, the CPUs and even the 2017 that I have just can't handle Tahoe in general. But if you're into music production, if you're into audio, if you're an audiophile person, if you're into even some video production. So I want to interject for a minute and kind of include a section for the webcam. This is 720p at 30 FPS. So I'm also using the external microphone that it is on the laptop itself. As you can see, it doesn't sound great, but it is clear enough. I have used this on Discord with just that mic itself, and people said they could hear me just fine. So it is clear enough to where if you're in a pinch, you can use it. Also, the webcam doesn't look bad. This will get you by in a pinch, especially if you're having to use like Zoom or Teams, or if you're in a Discord call and you just want to have some kind of video. This will work. Just know that, curve your expectations, because it works, but it's not great. And that's about where I can leave it. I would still tell you to go get these Intel Macs. They're worth the price. If you're getting over $400, you're paying too much for it. But if you can find one between $150 to about $300, that's still a perfectly good laptop. As long as the butterfly keyboard works, it will serve you well. It doesn't type well, but it will serve you well. And the touch bar is actually very good in lots of applications. Once again, I really wish that the touch bar was on the new Macs. So with that being said, I do like the fact that this 2016 13-inch MacBook Pro, it still has some life. It's still giving me good usage. I still get like close to 6 hours of battery life, sometimes 4 depending on what I'm doing. But the fact of the matter is, it still works. It's still portable, and I can still use it. Of course, if I'm using it at the church, it's definitely plugged in because, yeah, I have a lot of things running on it. But it's able to handle that, and is able to do it with almost zero latency. Like it's crazy how quick this is. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that Apple actually has their Apple Core audio built in, and it's really good. It's really good. If you want to know more about Apple Core audio, maybe I'll do a video about it. Just let me know in the comments if you want me to do a video, or just Google it and it will tell you everything that you need to know about it. So with that being said, I'm just waiting for War Thunder, who gave me this laptop, thank you very much, to come out and call me an Apple shield. It's okay. It's all right. Eventually, this laptop will outlive its use for macOS and probably turn into a Linux machine, and more likely, it'll probably run Pop! OS because it looks close enough to macOS. So other than that, I hope you guys enjoy the video. And until then, if you like the video, leave a like, subscribe if you want to see more content like this. I'd like to hear from you in the comments. Leave comments down below. And Until next time, God bless. Peace.